The knock on the door came at exactly 12:17 in the morning, sharp and uncertain, the kind of sound that doesn't belong in a quiet house at that hour. I remember staring at the clock beside my bed, wondering if I had imagined it. The house was still, wrapped in the soft hum of the heater and the distant sound of wind brushing against the windows. For a moment, I stayed frozen, listening. Then the knock came again, slower this time, hesitant, as if whoever stood outside wasn't sure they should be there. My name is Laura Mitchell, and until that night, I believed I understood what it meant to be prepared for anything life might bring. I was wrong. I pulled on a sweater and stepped into the hallway, my heart beating faster with each step toward the front door. When I opened it, I found Ethan standing on the porch. His shoulders were hunched, his jacket thin for the cold, his face pale beneath the porch light. He looked younger than his 18 years, eyes filled with something I couldn't immediately name. "Ethan," I said softly, "what are you doing here so late?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked down at his hands, fingers trembling slightly. When he finally lifted his gaze, his voice came out barely louder than a whisper. I didn't know where else to go. I stepped aside without hesitation and let him in. The door closed behind us with a quiet click that felt heavier than it should have. The house suddenly felt different, as if it had sensed that something important had crossed its threshold. Ethan had come into my life years earlier when I married his father, Daniel. From the beginning, our relationship had been polite but distant. We shared meals, exchanged small talk, and respected each other's space, but there was always an invisible wall between us. I never tried to force closeness. I believed relationships should grow naturally, not be pushed. That night, however, that wall looked thinner than it ever had. I guided him to the living room and handed him a mug of warm tea. He wrapped his hands around it, staring into the steam as if searching for answers inside it. Minutes passed in silence. I didn't rush him. Some stories need space before they can be spoken. Finally, he took a breath. "I messed up," he said. I sat across from him, keeping my voice calm. "Tell me what happened." He hesitated, then began to speak. He talked about pressure, about feeling like he was expected to have his entire future figured out already. College applications, expectations, comparisons. He admitted he'd made a decision that night that scared him afterward, one that left him feeling lost and ashamed. It wasn't anything dangerous or illegal, but to him, it felt like a failure big enough to define him. As he spoke, I realized something important. This wasn't just about one bad night. This was about a young man who felt unseen, unheard, and uncertain about his place in the world. When he finished, he waited, bracing himself for disappointment. Instead, I leaned forward. "Ethan," I said gently, "everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what we learn from them." His eyes filled with tears he clearly didn't want to shed. "I thought you'd be mad." I shook my head. "I'm not mad. I'm glad you came here." That was the moment everything shifted. We talked until the sky outside began to lighten. We talked about fear, about expectations, about how strength isn't about never stumbling but about getting back up. I shared stories from my own past, moments I wasn't proud of, times I had felt completely lost. He listened closely, surprised, as if he'd never imagined that I, too, had once been unsure of who I was. When morning came, the house felt warmer, brighter, even though nothing physical had changed. Over the following weeks, something new grew between us. Ethan started stopping by the kitchen just to talk. He asked for advice. He laughed more. The quiet distance that once defined our interactions faded into something comfortable and real. Daniel noticed the change too. One evening, he pulled me aside and said, "Whatever you did, thank you. He seems lighter." I didn't think I'd done anything extraordinary. I'd simply listened. Sometimes, that's all someone needs. Months later, Ethan stood in the doorway again, but this time it was midday, and he was smiling. He told me about a new direction he was excited about, a path that felt right to him. He thanked me for being there that night, for not judging him, for opening the door when he needed it most. That midnight visit didn't just change him. It changed me too. It taught me that family isn't defined by titles or expectations, but by presence, patience, and compassion. And sometimes, the most important moments in life arrive quietly, long after midnight, asking only that we listen.